should you stop paying your council tax? So we're going to analyse this issue. It does crop up quite a bit online, to my surprise. I'm going to include a couple of videos in the description of this particular video. One is from a gentleman called Richard Vobes, who has quite a large following on YouTube, and I quite like Richard Vobes. He does come across in a very, very entertaining way. His videos are very enjoyable, and he does have intellectual arguments for the position that he takes. Now, I don't agree with the position, but if you've got an intellectual argument for what you believe in, then I'm quite okay with that. The other video is from the other end of the spectrum, and it's from a gentleman called Mr. Matt Hoy, and I believe he was part of UB40, or perhaps a follow-on band or a tribute act to UB40. I don't really know. I haven't followed UB40's history that closely, but I've included that in the description to give you another idea of some of the ways that this is positioned. But I would consider Matt Hoy's argument to be particularly idiotic. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to cover the main arguments around why some people believe that you shouldn't pay your council tax. Now, before I do this, I'm just going to have a disclaimer here. I pay my council tax, and, essentially after I've analysed everything, after I've analysed all the emails they send me about what they're doing and the people they're helping on there, and looked at the way that they distribute the money that they get, and I've analysed what I use of the council services and, my particular perception, what it boils down to is this. Essentially, I pay almost £200 a month to have my bins collected. And needs to be borne in mind, on top of that, I also pay extra for the council to come and pick up my kind of greenery bin, or, garden bin, if you like. So that's an extra 40 odd quid a year, I believe. But in the main, the council's taking almost £200 a month off me to pick up my bins. Now, and that's been that way for a long time. Now, I don't like paying council tax. I don't like it every year when they keep increasing the council tax, because, to my mind, I don't know why they're increasing it. Got no reason why. Apparently, they've got a lot of pensions that they have to pay for people that are on the oversized salaries that they're getting at the council already, and everything else that goes on at the council. Who knows what happens in those buildings? But something's going on somewhere, and they are justifying the salaries to somebody, I would imagine, in some way. And of course, this can also justify the huge and magnificent pensions that these people receive after they've finished whatever work they claim they're meant to be doing. So, on to the arguments against paying council tax. So the first one that gets thrown up quite often is that there's a lack of a contractual agreement. So you never signed a contract with the council, so you're not obliged to pay. I never went to the council and said, "Hi, how are you doing? Would you come and pick my bins up every couple of weeks, if that's all right, and I'll give you £200 a month." There was no discussion of that happened. The reason there was no discussion of that happened, and the reason I haven't signed a contract with the council, is because it's a statutory charge, meaning it's imposed by law. There's no contract required. It's imposed by law, and so it doesn't require a contract. Argument number 2, we're looking at the sovereign individual arguments, and I love these arguments. So there's a freeman of the land, so the council get really annoyed and they come round to your house, and when they're screaming and shouting at you at the door, you open the door, you walk out, and you proudly announce that I'm a freeman of the land. So there's a specific movement around this freeman of the land. There's also quite a large movement in America about, I'm a sovereign individual, so the police don't have a right to stop me, etc., and I can just go around doing what I want. These movements do happen everywhere, and it's a response to the oppressive nature of governments, and I do have a sympathy with that type of argument. I do believe that governments are oppressive, and by and large they do take liberties with people. My view is that I want to lead as easy a life as possible and enjoy the brief time I've got on this planet with my family, and I don't want to spend it arguing with bureaucrats 24/7. And so yes, whilst I do agree with some of the concepts of the sovereign individual, I don't believe that you can opt out of paying council tax by refusing consent to it, mainly because the UK courts have repeatedly ruled in the past that this has no legal standing whatsoever. The third argument, and it's actually an argument that I 100% agree with, which is the misuse of funds. So some people might refuse to pay council tax because they believe that the council is mismanaging their funds, wasting money, and they don't provide adequate services. I would agree on all of that. With regard to adequate services, as I said, the only time that I interact with the council is when they come and get my bins. And I'm quite happy with the bin men. They seem quite a cheery lot. They always turn up. I'm always amused by bin men because they often turn up and they'll be having a vape on their vaporizers. They're just picking the bins up. I actually saw one bin man eating a sandwich while he was picking the bins up. He must have the immune system of a buffalo. But, I've always found the bin men to be quite friendly. The one time that the bin men actually broke one of my bins, I actually got a communication from the council saying, "Oh, we're really sorry that we've broke one of your bins." So he was also an honest bin man. So I'm quite happy with that service. However, I'm not getting any other service. So in terms of misuse of funds, I can categorically say it doesn't cost the council almost £200 a month to pick my bins up, so I would have to agree with the misuse of funds. But regardless of that, failure to pay doesn't really help you, and you're not exempt from paying it just because you believe the council is misusing your funds. Another example of one of these arguments is something about unfair taxation. So some critics will argue that the council tax is outdated and unfair, especially given that it's based on 1991 property valuations. Yes, it is based on an outdated model. I have a feeling that if they were to change that model, that somewhere mixed in with all of that, they'd end up taking more money from me. I have no basis for that. I can't justify that. But, given that it is based on a 1991 property valuation, I just feel like they've got to base it on something. And so, really, that argument to me is a little bit spurious. It doesn't really matter, the system that they're using to take payment. They're going to justify that payment, even if they were to come up with a report saying, "Oh, well, the property valuations from 2024 this, and this is why you're paying that." They could do that if they really wanted to, and that ultimately would end up costing you more money because they would charge you for the privilege of them doing that to you. Moving on, some people also argue that it's a double taxation, so they already pay income tax, and council tax is an unfair additional cost. And that may be true. Council tax does fund some local services which are not covered by national taxation, but I have sympathy with that argument. I pay income tax, and what's the point of the council? If everything's being applied fairly across everywhere, then surely there's no need for the council to be double taxing me. Again, I have some sympathy with that argument. Human rights. Some claim that council tax violates your human rights. Some people will even claim that there's legal loopholes, within all of these rights. So what they would say is, council tax violates my human right and it's an unlawful demand. Therefore, what I'm going to do, I'm going to look through all of the legal loopholes that exist to avoid paying council tax. And, you can cite these obscure legal principles. One of the arguments that I heard from this was, did you actually realise that the United Kingdom government is a limited company and they create your identity for you at birth? And because they've created your identity for you at birth, this can mean that they've done that unlawfully. And so your human rights have been breached Ergo, I don't have to pay my council tax. Using a law that was from 1643, when a king walked across some marsh and made a proclamation to, the 7 maidens that were fawning over him, and because of that, you don't have to pay your council tax. So, I have sympathy for all of these arguments. As I say, I don't agree with the services that I'm getting for council tax. The double taxation argument is fair enough. I don't actually see the need for a council. I don't understand why they're there. If the laws are applied across the land, then surely the government should apply everything equally. The very fact that you've got different managed services indicates that we all live in a postcode lottery, however you want to look at it. And, I do have several issues with paying council tax. However, what you need to bear in mind is, if you don't pay your council tax, regardless of what Mr. Matt Hoy says, and he says he hasn't paid it for 3 years, and he finds it very, very entertaining, was the word he used if you watch the video, entertaining, when he gets people coming round and knocking at his door. So I'm going to posit this statement here, and I'm going to imagine a situation. So you go down this little imaginary route with me. So you're sitting in your house, you're watching Coronation Street, and you're having a slice of, your lemon drizzle cake or whatever it is that you do. And then what happens? There's a knock at the door. You open up the door, and there's some police there and bailiffs. And they say to you, you owe the council £3,800 because you haven't been paying your council tax for a couple of years, so we're going to come in and take your telly. And we're going to take this and take that unless you can pay this. And I would put it to you that that's not going to be very entertaining at all. I would also say that, dealing with liability orders, particularly if you're struggling financially, the council can attach orders to all of your payments, be that even unemployment benefit. So even if you're on receipt of unemployment benefit and you're living, if you like, under the breadline, they can still attach a payment to that. Do that even though you're exempt, they can still get you for past council tax. Okay, so they can do whatever they wish to do. They can, send bailiffs. They can make deductions from wages or benefits, and in extreme cases, send you to prison. So, when you're looking at these people online, and you're wondering whether or not you should pay your council tax, my answer to that would be yes. Yes, you should be paying your council tax, because if you don't pay your council tax, you're going to have a boatload of trouble, which isn't worth it. No one likes paying council tax. This is obvious. Everyone thinks council tax is unfair, but you pay your taxes to have an easy life. And without you paying your taxes, then everyone else has to substitute you not paying your taxes. Yes, taxes are a part of life and they're very unfair, but they are also unavoidable. So just grow up and pay your taxes. Hope you've enjoyed that. Thanks very much for your time.